You're saying that UFO...
First chapter of Ezekiel.
All right, let's see it.
Go back and read it. You'll think you're on acid or something. And realize, too, it's the King James translation. He translated it from Aramaic, I believe.
I don't know why it's important that it be the King James Version, but it was not translated by King James. The texts of the Bible were assigned to a variety of different companies, and the first Oxford Company was responsible for translating Isaiah through Malachi, which would include the book of Ezekiel, and that was headed up by John Harding, and then also a member of the first Oxford Company were Richard Brett, Richard Fairclough, Daniel Featley, Thomas Holland, Richard Kilby, John Reynolds, Miles Smith, and William Thorne, and Ezekiel was written in Hebrew, not in Aramaic.
I'm sure somebody's going to correct me on that. I'm not a biblical philosopher, I just read it. Yeah, it's in there, and it talks about the visitor coming down. It describes the craft, it describes the landing gear, and some translations like a traditional pad that comes out like you've seen in the science fiction movie.
Nothing about Ezekiel's description of God sitting upon their throne upon a platform held up by spinning wheels with eyes all over them matches any classical descriptions of UFOs. And this bizarre imagery is intended to exalt and glorify God by suggesting they have sovereignty over the most bizarre things you can imagine. But it's also an attempt to mobilize God's throne, and so the idea of wheels and flying is a critical element of this rhetoric. The idea is that we are way over here outside the land of Israel. The temple has been destroyed. The place where God's presence could be encountered has been destroyed. And how do we resolve that tension? Well, we have God's throne mobilized and able to fly and able to come visit us beyond the land of Israel. That's what's going on in the imagery of Ezekiel 1.
I look at those stars in the sky, and those stars, the light left those stars before the time of Christ. And that is the vastness of God's great universe.
Well, Ezekiel thought of those stars as deities, specifically the host of heaven, members of God's divine council who were part of their military and would fight on their behalf, as we see in places like Judges 5.
And honestly, do you think we're the best that God can do?
This is certainly not the best that Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District can do.